Hi there and welcome to the RevOps show. You know that rush when you first launch your new CRM? Everything's new, the data's flowing, and everyone's truly excited about the updates in the tool. But then reality hits. Adoption stalls, people start grumbling, the excitement fades. In this episode, we're talking about what happens after the honeymoon phase ends with your CRM and how to rekindle that spark. From keeping things fresh to avoiding overwhelm, Doug and Jess share real strategies to keep your CRM working for your team. So with that, let's dive in.
Jess?
Yes, Doug?
It's too early to be recording this.
Sorry.
It's too early in the morning.
Sorry.
I woke up too late, and it is too early.
It's my fault. Our schedules are ridiculous. This
Have
was
you
the only
even
slot.
had coffee?
I've had coffee. I finished a full cup of coffee. I've had coffee.
Are you a 1 cup of coffee person, or are you a multiple?
Oh, I'm a 1 cup of coffee person. Occasionally, I have 1 cup. Occasionally, I like a cup in the evening, which I know is weird, and for some people, they can't sleep. That is not the case for me.
So you're a 1 cup gal.
I am 1 cup gal. Yeah, I don't drink coffee throughout the day.
Are we allowed to say that still? Is that still something?
Sure.
I mean,
I'm fine with that.
I wasn't sure if that was like if. So Jess.
Yeah.
I was reading the news this morning.
Oh, that's. I wouldn't advise that.
Try to stay away from. I mean, it's so hard for me. Well, it was more business news. So I'm curious. Have you planned your vacation to Abu Dhabi?
My trip to Abu Dhabi
for 5-7 years from now?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought about it. I was like, can we do the calculus on when they'll actually have the park ready, even though no dates have been announced?
So they say it takes about 2 years to develop the land and 5 years to build the park. 5 years. Doesn't that sound like a long time?
It does sound like a long time.
I mean, maybe they can do modular rides. They can get it down to 2 years.
Here's the thing. Like, I would rather go to Japan or Paris before I go to Abu Dhabi. I've not been to any of the international parks. I mean, I've not been to any park but World. Like, I gotta go to Disneyland before I go to Abu Dhabi. Like,
you'd rather go to Paris or Japan? Like, that would. I think most people would rather go to Japan or Paris.
Yeah, and I haven't been to either of those parks, so those would be.
So you've got 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, Japan is like way cheaper than going here, even with the flight, from what I understand.
Really?
That's what video bloggers have. That's what vloggers have said. I don't know if it's reliable.
Is Japan just Magic Kingdom, or is it multi-park?
It's 2 parks. There's like a Magic Kingdom version, and then there's what would be the equivalent of like probably a Hollywood Studios or a California Adventure type. They have it's Tokyo Sea, so it's on the water. It's very cool. It's very cool.
Now, Jess, whether we're talking about Japan, France, or the United Arab Emirates, there's one thing you would need to go to any of those.
Money.
Well, no, there's another thing that you would need to go to any of those that apparently you have a major problem with.
Oh, a passport. Yeah,
passport.
No kidding. Still haven't found it.
And you would need a full passport for that.
I would. I didn't even have a full passport. So there you go. I'm aware.
So, we still can't do the Bahamas.
I'm aware. I'm going to be getting my passport replaced over the summer just because I just had to get over the frustration of the loss. I had to process the grief.
So what's your feeling on Disney running a park that it doesn't own? They're going the royalties route. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
So were you excited to see the news or meh?
I mean, I'm indifferent because honestly, I'd rather see them add another park in Florida, selfishly, or like I'd like a timeline on the announcements of the build out.
You're a Harry Potter person, right?
I like Harry Potter. I'm a little bit too old to be like obsessed with Harry Potter. It was not the age of my younger brother, who's 6 years younger than me, was the age of Harry Potter as the books were getting released. So he is like very much identifies with that with that IP. I like Harry Potter. My oldest
Does he walk around with a wand?
He would walk around with a wand if we allowed him to. My oldest loves it, and so she's more the Potter fan. I'm like, I enjoy it, but
so the reason I asked the question is, would you ever go to Universal Studios?
So we've talked about this. My issue with
very touchy subject in the
So there's two issues with Universal. One is my motion sickness. So they use a lot of screens. I don't think I'd be able to ride half of the rides at Universal because of the screens. I hear that they are very motion sickness inducing. And then my younger daughter.
You love roller coasters.
I do love roller coasters. They don't like me. They don't like me as much.
Wow,
at 40.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I love roller coasters, but I have to take Dramamine and motion sickness pads and all that, so that way I can ride them, and I can't ride them the way I used to. And then my youngest has like some restrictions on what she can ride. So like the same thing, she wouldn't be able to ride. So we've talked about it several times, but it's just, are we going to pay the money for me and Elena to not be able to ride most of what's there? Probably not.
For you, the park's about the rides, not about the ambiance, not about the experience.
I have no emotional attachment to Universal. Like the IP at Universal doesn't interest me the way it does Disney. So yeah, for Universal, it would be the rides. Like I'm interested to see the Harry Potter lands at Universal, but that would be about like Jurassic Park does nothing really for me. I think the only nostalgia I have at Universal is the ET ride, honestly. Like outside of that, so we've talked about it. We'll see. The reality is, if we go to Disneyland, we'll probably go to Universal California. That one interests me more because of the studio tour. Yeah.
Now Disney Hollywood Studios no longer has a studio tour, right? They
do in California. They still have the backlot tour.
At Universal.
At Universal, yeah. Disney doesn't have it anymore. They used to have a backlot tour in Florida. They don't have a backlot anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the Universal Studio Tour, does it still do the earthquake?
So I think so. From what I understand, they brought back like where you go in the tunnel in the water, and Disney had that version of it. I remember riding that when I was a kid. So
and the bridge begins to break down and all that stuff.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So
those were the days. The Jaws.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still a part of it, but so that's my take on Universal versus Disney. I don't know. I'm kind of
Alrighty, Jess, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the honeymoon being over, Doug.
So the Disney trip is over.
Exactly. No, we're talking about you've launched your CRM. You've had a successful launch, and the honeymoon's over. Users are no longer excited. So how do you keep them engaged? What do you do next to keep folks excited, folks engaged, so you don't lose adoption, you don't lose utilization?
I think that is clearly the time that paying your outside provider more.
You think that's the time to pay your outside provider more?
And that's when you start paying your outside provider, more. You don't ask them to do more. You just pay them more.
It's totally unbiased opinion on your part.
I think you'll get your team excited and let them know how much you're investing in the CRM. It's a fascinating question. Let's be transparent on the podcast, if that's okay. We kind of got that call, right? We had a very successful launch. Mm-hmm. This was a replacement of an existing CRM. Reps were very pleased with the ease, the functionality, what they're able to do with it. And then in one of our check-ins, our client said to us, well, we're now past, the honeymoon phase is over. They're no longer just excited by the new tool. And I have mixed emotions on the subject. Mm-hmm. Because do you know what my definition of a great CRM is?
One that's invisible.
Think about it.
Yeah.
You use it, but you don't think about it.
Right.
So it's an interesting question because, to some degree, to some degree, it's the wrong question.
Right.
right? The goal is not to have people engaged in the CRM. The goal is not to have people excited about the CRM. The goal is salespeople selling, marketers marketing, success people successing. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts?
So I actually had a similar thought to you initially when I was putting this together. I don't think it's about the CRM. Like I think if we're talking about the CRM, we're on the wrong track. That said, there is an aspect of we do need to continue to talk about how do we connect that into our processes? How do we continue to evolve? How do we make the lift lighter for the sales team, the marketing team, the success teams? And how do we make sure that their processes run through the CRM? I mean, we talk about this in training, right? I tell our clients, we don't train on the CRM. We train on your process, and we happen to be in the CRM when we're training on that. That's kind of, I think, where more of where the conversation needs to go versus, focusing solely on the CRM.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the places where if you think about where CRM, the danger zone for CRM, it's not right at launch.
Yeah.
If you do it right. I mean, A, you've thought about the vast majority of things. B, there's something new. There's the novelty effect that plays to that. And C, everyone is attuned. I mean, if you've managed expectations effectively, and you're attuned to the fix, so you're fixing things quick. So someone has an issue, you're fixing things quickly, and so forth. It's really, once you get it to about 90 days of use,
yep,
to about 9 months,
yep,
that's the adoption zone,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so your launch moves into an adoption zone, and I think that when you think about the adoption zone, you're really thinking about three things, kind of three phases within the adoption zone. And I think the first phase is about achieving stability. Mm-hmm. And that's stability in a couple different places. It's stability with, when you're implementing it, it's funny how as you go through a CRM implementation, you become intimately aware with the weaknesses of your organization's infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you can't wait to address all of those weaknesses. And data structure is one of those places.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Data structure, ownership,
yep.
Segmentation. At the same time, things are moving at a really fast rate.
Yep.
So you've really got to put together a prioritization path of what that stability, like what's needed for stability. A lot of things come up around connected systems, what's needed to be able to connect your system. So I think that there's a stability zone. Then there's an integration phase where you really meld it now into business process. So it's kind of like, if you do it right, you paid a lot of attention to business process in the initial design of CRM. Mm-hmm. Launched.
Yep.
So there's, you're talking about the business process, you're talking about importance. You're then getting to stability. And you're finding all the gaps between, candidly, you're finding a lot of gaps in the business process.
Yep.
Yep. And there's lots of decisions that need to be made about the business process.
Mm-hmm.
And what and how that needs to happen. And so that second phase is the integration phase. And then the third phase is the ramp. That's where it's now really part of the process. And you begin to get you enter your iteration cycles because you've achieved that stability. You've got the core functionality in place. You're looking at you've got and if you think about it from a maturity model, you've got to get to level 2 before you get to level 3 and level 4.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really a lot about getting to level 2, that ability to know where the business is, mm-hmm. is an important.
Yeah. And I think thinking about achieving stability and even into the integration phase, if we think about wanting to evolve the CRM, one thing that you have to have foundationally, this is part of a strong launch, by the way, but it needs to maintain, is, making sure there's feedback loops for users. So yeah, as you map out and build, you're going to identify issues in your process, right? You're going to do that with deep dive conversations with your stakeholders, but you also need to have a feedback loop for the users to capture those backlog items. So things like office hours, we do workshop sessions frequently as a part of deep dives where we talk to the sales reps, the service reps, to get direct feedback from them on what the issues are. We don't always action those at launch frequently. We don't. They go on the backlog, and that's how you start building out what your future phases are going to be, and then also make sure you're building that into your training. So as you're training folks, you're building those new skills, updated features, up-leveling users, and taking that direct feedback into the trainings that you have. So I think that's one thing. And again, that should start from launch, but I think frequently we do that well at launch and then we fall off on it. Because to your point, that 90 days to 9 months, we don't pay as much attention to getting that feedback out from the users.
I think that's where the always be launching perspective is important. The thing that's interesting about a launch, as much as we say launch is the start line, it's not the finish line, it is a finish line.
Yeah.
It is a clear, distinct area of complete. And one of the things, and I thought about this, and this is something I think we need to do to bring back, one of the things we need to do with the client that we're having this conversation with is we need to more clearly define what is the next complete.
Yep.
Right. So that we all know what we're pushing to. Are we on course? Are we not on course? What are we trading off to? And things like that. By the way, you need that so that the teams that are working on it still have a clear point that they're working towards.
Yep.
We've kind of gone from a finite game to we're now in the infinite game.
Yep.
Right. You start getting the messy middle.
Yep.
Lots and lots and lots of things in the middle. And one of the things that I see that happens when you have lots and lots and lots of things in the middle is you do a little bit here, you do a little bit here, you do a little bit there, but you never finish anything.
So by the way, that is, I think, some of what drove this conversation is we do have a defined complete, but we lost the plot a little bit because there's, to your point, a little bit here, a little bit there, and we're not.
I think we've got a defined complete, but we got a little too, I think our complete is a little too scopish as opposed to functional.
Yep. Yeah.
What is the functional complete? What are we going to be able to do?
Right.
Right. Yep. We're going to fix this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to this is what we're going to do. Not this is where we're going to be.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because if you remember, one of the reasons that what could have very easily been a very messy launch with a lot of pushback that got almost universal praise from users.
Yep.
So we did an exceptionally good job of managing their expectations.
Yeah.
But on launch, you will be able to do this.
Yep.
And this is the functionality that will be equal to or better.
Yep.
There are things that you won't be able to do.
Yep.
Right. But anything that's not on this list of what you'll be able to do, what will be at function parity or better. And the response that we got was, you said we'd be able to do these 5 things, and we could do all 5 of those things at or better than we could do them before.
Right.
We can also do this and this, and this other thing's really cool. We've started to use that.
Yeah.
Right. We're now getting some of the pushback, and it's around a lot of the data structure, and I mean we're cleaning up what is 20 some years of accumulated data anarchy.
Yep.
Right. Which every time you pull on a string, you learn something else that's not that's not in place, et cetera. But we're not And at the same time, and this might surprise people, but salespeople are good at complaining.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're great squeaky wheels.
And so if you lose that clarity, it's very easy to lose the plot of what you're doing.
Yep. Which actually, so that's an excellent segue into the next kind of topic I want to talk about, which is a place that, if again, full disclosure, I feel like we don't talk about or think about enough, which is communication. How are we going to communicate updates to the team? How are we going to make sure users are aware of updates? How are we going to let users know in advance if we've changed something so they're not surprised by something? I don't think we don't do a great job there, if I'm being honest. And this client that we're talking about, actually, they do
to say those things.
I know. This client we're talking about, they do a great job because they have a person like dedicated to be able to do that. So that is one thing you should think about, is like, what are your communications that are going out as you're making updates? So a couple of things here. First of all, highlighting one valuable feature at a time versus like where I see like a laundry list of updates and it's like, okay, don't put 10 updates to me in an email. I'm going to stop reading after the third one. So doing like a feature spotlight type of communication, which gets you to making sure you're phasing your rollouts. So there is a strategy around, hey, we are going to get these 5 functions by this time. Don't roll out all 5 at the same time. Stagger them. That maintains excitement. By the way, I'm constantly getting new things. It's constantly fresh. It also makes it easier for a user to track it. Again, if you give me 5 things at once, I don't really understand how those connect to various aspects of the process, and also like I can't keep up with all of them. And that brings me to my last point, which is, as you're communicating these rollouts, as you're doing these phase rollouts, contextualizing those communications to how do they fit in with the business process and aligning them with any business cycles. So for instance, we worked on market plans with a client in Q4, which was a big initiative for them. It was a need they had, but honestly, rolling that out at that time while they're going through that process is more beneficial than us had we rolled it out in Q2 of last year. So I'm not going to say the hold off was strategic, but you should be thinking about that. Like, okay, you can stage it and have it ready, but when do we actually roll it out so it's timely for the management team, for the users, so that way you can connect to your business process, your business goals.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's missed from a implementation standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, is just the critical importance of internal marketing, which is marketing to your people. Mm-hmm. When I ran a sales team, I used to do I used to do a bi-weekly newsletter type update where I would share. I would always have one particular skill that I'd be focused on, and a general update. I think especially as sales teams get larger. And by the way, going back to, kind of weaving in what we talked about previously, one of the other challenges that, like, if you think about what's one of the main reasons why people change their CRM, they change their CRM because they don't have a clear view of how the business is performing, what the business is doing. And so there's lots of additional work around the CRM. Lots of external spreadsheets that people are using, lots of things that are happening. No one has a clear view. It gets frustrating for salespeople because they hold a sales call and the salesman, okay, so what happened? Tell me and your pipeline reviews, you spend more time reviewing what happened rather than planning or strategizing for what's going to happen, et cetera. So one of the things that I've learned is adoption gets adoption. Utilization begets utilization.
Yep.
One of the key places where I'm going to focus on, by the way, people are so used to using their spreadsheets that even when you replace the spreadsheet, they still use the spreadsheet. By the way, one of the things that I think people miss about spreadsheets is you work on the spreadsheet. So there's a thinking process that goes into the spreadsheet.
Yep.
Right. There's a entering you're thinking, you're looking at it, you're analyzing, etc. There's a ritual to that. Well, now we give you that report in real time.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you have the data, right? You have the data.
Yep.
But you didn't do the thinking, right? So there's the breaking of the habit of using that. But one of the key leverage points, especially in mid-sized to larger sales organizations, is really focusing on how is the sales manager using the CRM.
Yep.
As the sales manager uses the CRM better to manage their business and to move from oversight to more of a coaching, supporting, and enabling perspective, right? That's what drives the utilization of the CRM by the frontline user.
Yeah, and that's actually one point that came up as I was kind of compiling thoughts and doing research for this is leadership needs to use the CRM and the users need to see leadership using it. Because it's like, okay, well, if my manager's not using it, why do I have to? Like, you get that mentality, right? Also, and we see this frequently, the sooner you can get a manager to run a coaching call or a pipeline review out of the CRM, the more adoption you get, because the rep has to update the record so they're prepared for the pipeline review. So if you're asking your rep to fill in the CRM and you're not using the CRM in your coaching reviews, in your pipeline reviews, or the equivalent of that with your service team, then you're not pushing them to the tool, because it's like, well, why am I updating this if we're not even going to use it for these key meetings? So that should be a component that you talk about with launch, by the way. I think it gets skipped sometimes. And then you should continue to build and improve on that.
Sorry, you gave me something. That I didn't want to forget. There's the aspect of, I'm not a fan. If it's not in the CRM, you don't get paid. Comp is comp. I'm not even sure you could actually do that. We've got a client. This is not the same client. There's one rep. She just doesn't keep the CRM updated, and I think it's as much the opposition disorder that exists in every great salesperson, right?
Yeah.
You tell me I need to do this, I'll show you. And so one of the places where it really this rep doesn't keep the forecast category.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it, she's forecasting no business
because everything's zero.
Well, most of them are blank. Like there's no, so it's just we're the way. And so I'm having an advisory call with we're going over some of the business analyst stuff that we're doing, and I'm saying look, I'm looking at the forecast, and got to tell you I'm getting nervous, and the manager, or the VP in this case, said but Michelle, not a real name. Michelle never keeps that stuff updated anyway. She's got this, and this coming in. Yeah. We're going to be fine. And I'm like, oh, okay, that may be true, and that's nice and everything.
Right.
But I can tell you, I would be having a conversation with her as though we've got nothing. We've got a performance problem. What's happening? Oh, okay. Well, if you don't want to have these conversations, which are totally unnecessary, all you have to do is, if you keep this property up to date, I won't have to, but you've got to manage. Now, again, I'm not saying you become a desk jockey and only the CRM.
Yep.
It's not about compliance to the CRM. It's about sales.
Yep.
But you've got to manage based upon what you're seeing, so that I get, as the user, the reward for me for keeping it updated is the quality of my internal conversations goes up. Those things are happening, and that's, it changes the operating rhythm. If it doesn't change the operating rhythm, then it's a logging tool that nobody understands why they're using it anyways, because it doesn't make any difference.
Yep.
And I think that this is the place where, like and this is why managing expectations is so important, is you're not fully in a place where you can run the business fully on it. So you still have, and you've got new habits forming, et cetera. And let me tell you something, for those of you that don't know this, salespeople are the hardest people to change habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think, and this is something that we talk to them about and we probably should bring up. This is the place. And again, size of the organization dependent, but this is where you begin to identify who are your CRM champions.
Yeah.
I think, one idea that we've seen is building a CRM council that has, that's made up of users. So it's about, establishing a user group that helps you manage communications through too often the communication is just completely top down.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And so managing that and having groups of people that are part of it, and it's, a coordinated effort, I think makes it, an us initiative, not a you versus me initiative.
I have a question for you on CRM champions. We've talked about this before. So I came across this concept of rotating champions, which the thought behind it is every quarter you rotate your CRM champions because then you get fresh ideas, more people feeling like there's buy-in, other takes. How do you feel about that? You and I have never talked about that before.
I think part of the reason we've never talked about it before is just getting a CRM champion, really in place and implementing a CRM council, just getting that going is challenging enough in and of itself.
Right.
You also need to be a certain size before that type of thing doesn't become, shooting a bunny rabbit with a bazooka.
Yeah.
I think, so I like the idea of rotating. Mm-hmm. I think there's a danger of sometimes, you don't want it to be a penalty.
Yeah.
Right. Here's one more thing. Oh, so you're the one that's active and practice. So, okay, we're going to take up your time.
Yeah.
I think rotating it quarterly is too frequently.
Okay.
I think the danger there is it's about new ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the places where CRM shoots itself is I don't think there's a shortage of ideas. It's really to me, what a CRM council will do is allow you to operate at a level 2, level 3 depth of impact rather than everything being level 1.
Yep.
And I think, really understanding what's going in, what's going into it. I also think that the way there's I would stagger the rotations. So it's not so I don't know, we've got one company that's starting to put something together. There's probably going to be 10 to 12 people on it.
Yep.
Turning it over 3 or 4 at a time. So that there's still some of that there's a lot of tribal knowledge that you want to be able to maintain. There's, a lot of tribal knowledge in managing CRM and managing the business process. I also think you need to make sure you have a mix of levels of people that are involved, so that you're getting that perspective. I think it's great from beyond just managing CRM. It leads to cross collaboration and pollination of ideas and so forth.
Yep. Last piece I want to talk about here before we kind of move on is when we're talking about engagement, what are your thoughts on gamification and what's the right way to do that to keep users engaged? Well,
again, I think if you're implementing something new, let's say that there's a new thing that you're tracking. We've got a client that is implementing a more advanced process for how they're managing demo management. Mm-hmm. And being able to track demos because one of their questions is, do we run too many demos? Mm. And so there's a whole new adoption of how we're tracking demos and the role of that and getting more advanced notification so that SEs aren't, oh, hey, I've got a demo in 2 hours. And so that's a place where I want to get adoption to the, just adoption of the new process.
Yep.
So tracking that and doing that, that's where I might gamify using the CRM. Mm-hmm. I'm more about gamification of what are key, what are the key outcomes that we're looking to drive, those influenceable cost of results. And the CRM is a great place for that, for that to show. So, for example, one thing that would probably lead to better adoption of the forecasting category is a forecast leaderboard. By the way, gamification is more than just tracking and having a leaderboard. There's got to be consequences to that, or else it becomes, a silly game.
Yeah.
There's lots of things that you can do. There's monetary compensation. I actually think monetary compensation on gamification is often the least motivating. I make my money doing my job. I'm going to make more money doing that than I've always found, like, I remember I did a gamification with an SDR team that we were working with. Mm-hmm. And for the winner of the game, whoever led the game, mm-hmm. I did a day of calls for them. They could take a day off and I did a day of calls.
Yeah.
Right. And that type of thing is, I mean, you would have thought we were paying them.
Well, they're just entertained to see you do calls. I mean, that's what that was. The last piece I want to hit on, and I came across this, and this is also something I don't think we've talked about much before, but kind of want to get your take, is technical freshness. And two categories there: UI freshness, which is like updating the interface to create a sense of improvement for users.
Changing things.
So this is actually what I want to talk about, because I had a visceral reaction to this of, like, how do you manage, users feeling like it's fresh and it's new, because that's exciting, but not having too much friction? Because, I mean, we've run into this where we log into the CRM and, like, the button moved and we're just pissed, because it's like, okay, where's the button? How do I do this now? So how do you kind of balance that, and what are your thoughts on that?
So there's a couple of things, forward movement and adoption and utilization and engagement and effectiveness. It's not all Skittles and rainbows.
Yeah.
So remember remember the medic layout that I showed you we're rolling out for a client for how they're tracking.
Yes.
Something. That's a UI change.
Yeah.
We showed that we've showed that to a couple of people, and their first response was, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah.
I think that's an example. We've got a client, bringing some reporting into the record. What's the revenue by month? Bringing that into it. That's a UI change. The quote request we're designing. That's a UI change that comes in. And those types. So I think that's what it's. It's easy to change things for the sake of changing them, and that's the ship. But I think adding those new elements and why are you doing that? What's the problem that it solves, et cetera? I think that's really what we're talking about more. And so I do think looking at the same old thing gets old. And by the way, when you change something up, how many times does somebody Facebook changes their timeline and everyone complains about it. They say this is the stupidest thing in history. And the reality is that's just a natural response. I mean, that resistance is engagement.
Yeah.
Right. And so the fact that the first thing you do is, like, sometimes what you're doing, anytime you're introducing new process to somebody, you're going to get resistance. That's just a natural reaction. That's the status quo fighting to protect itself. So again, you got to be careful that you don't get lost in a game that you just win. And this, again, is the fact that what's the best CRM? The best CRM is the one that's invisible. It just helps me get my job done. There's a balance between it getting old and staid and boring and new, and some frustration is actually part of what keeps us stimulated. So again, I think that's something that you've got to be careful about.
Yep.
But I do think keeping the UI and what I would say is more than the UI fresh, because I think we get lost in UI because that's something that managers can control. What I would say is keep the UX fresh.
Yeah, agreed. And then the second component of this that came up is integration expansion. So continually connect your tech stack to your CRM to make it more central, and also make it stickier.
Well, you connect your systems.
Yeah.
Like, I believe the perfect world is everybody uses what they use.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they use, because whatever I use is the equivalent of using what you use, because, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of growing the adoption.
Yeah.
Right. The more people that are using a centralized system, that's this whole yin and yang of a strong centralized operating system enables the transparency and clarity to democratize and decentralize decision-making and execution.
Yep.
And I think anything that you do that continues to reinforce that functionality drives greater perspective.
I've got a couple of takeaways before I go through that. Was there anything else you wanted to add on this topic that we didn't hit on?
The importance of internal communication. The other thing too, as I think about internal communication, is you want to keep 60 to 80% of the focus on in your interactions. Like, you want to continue to do your deep dives. You want to continue to be doing workshops. You want to get, because you want to keep the orientation focused on the future. The challenge of what happens, and I see it in RevOps functions all the time, is we launch something new, and there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of improvement, we clean up a lot of messes, but then, it settles in, and more of the conversation becomes a review of what happened. And the more you review what happened, the more you're doing a trailing review rather than a forward view, the more you're going to see entropy increase, complexity increase, friction increase, complexity. Remember, complexity builds upon itself. Our job is to constantly be cutting through that complexity, consolidating, moving forward, communicating, managing expectations, driving functionality. It connects very much to the acceleration cycles topic that I think we talked about last time.
Yep.
Or in a recent episode.
Couple of takeaways. The goal is not to have people excited or engaged in the CRM. The goal is to, have them working through their process and just happen to be in the CRM. Make sure you have a communication strategy and align that with your rollouts and align that with what's going on with your business as well. Provide that context. Leaders should be using the CRM. They should be using it visibly so users can see that. And then I want to highlight what you said about the adoption zone and making sure that you're paying attention to those 3 phases. So achieving stability, the integration phase, and then ramp.
Yeah. And I think, after the adoption zone, you move to the optimization zone, right? That's a big step up. I think a lot of people try to move to optimization too fast.
Yep. Agreed.
The other thing that I want to emphasize here is the concept that I talk about as levels of complete, right? You can't have a clear communication process. And like, if I were to take away one thread from this conversation today, the thread would be the importance of ongoing communication. Yep. And the thing is, again, when you're in your launch phase, you're so purposeful about your communication, or it's at least a lot easier to be purposeful about your communication.
Yeah.
Here, there's so many things going on. It's so easy to fall off that purpose and stay on message. Levels of complete and being clear about what that next level of complete and keeping that level of, and again, it also falls into your levels of complete become defined by what you're doing, not about functionality.
Yep.
Really keeping it focused on what's the outcome of what you're doing as the level of complete. What's the next user story? If you think about it, right, in this situation, we were very clear on the user stories we were supporting.
Yep.
We're not as clear. Like, what's the user story that this level of complete is supporting?
Right. Yeah.
And I think when you keep your levels of complete clear, you're able to keep your communication clear. And when your communication is clear, that's the key to saying no to shitty RevOps.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening to the RevOps Show. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all of the full episodes. If you have any inquiries about the show or have any questions you want Doug and Jess to answer, feel free to email me at hannah@liftenablement.com. I'll reiterate what Doug said at the very end here. It's all about communication. So, one more thing before you go. Just say no to shitty RevOps, and we'll see you next time.